Hello class, this is Mr. DeVoe-Peterson and we're going to talk about Chapter 2 and the Wireless Network Security class. And we start off with talking about different sizes and scopes of networks, in this case specifically wireless networks, and the most common that we're going to interact with will be the wireless local area network. So the first part of this chapter reviews the different types of networks we had in Chapter 1. So we're going to skip past that. This is new, radio frequency regulation. And what this is saying that around the world there's different frequency regulations and requirements, and the United States is in region 2, so that's good to know. What else? This part's kind of interesting, there are some bands, radio frequency bands, that are reserved for special purposes, and those are called license bands, and many times there's a fee associated with it, or there's a specific use like public safety associated with it, and these are those two examples of the license bands. We needed some standards as we developed this. This is all new. So we got a group of engineers together that formed the IEEE, or Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. And they work in committees and they come up and ratify standards. So most of what we're going to deal with in this book, for the most part, is 802.11 standards. And let's go to one of the first amendments. Here it is, 802.11a, and that was at 5 gigahertz type of bandwidth frequency, and it was 54 megabit speed. So 5 gigahertz means that it's relatively fast, but it doesn't go as far as a later standard we're going to get to, which is 2.4 gigahertz. So then we get to 802.11.11b, and that one is 2.4 gigahertz, and it goes at 11 megabits, so not as fast, but it can go quite a bit farther. It can penetrate walls better, so it's more usable in an office type situation. And then when was that? That was in 1999. Okay, so then 802.11g, and what was it, 2003, we go from 11 to 54 megabit speed, and quite a bit faster, right? And which is real handy. And now it's able to push more data wirelessly, so it can be used for more purposes. It's not restricted by the throughput like we were with 802.11b. Then we came up with another standard, and this now can use both 802.11n, and that was quite a thing when this came out. It was approved in 2009, so there's a bit of time span between this and 802.11, where was it? Was it G? Here it is, from 2003. So there's 6 years there. And I remember when 802.11, you could see them on the store shelves, and they weren't ratified yet, but they were being released for purchase, routers and so forth. And then with the promise of firmware updates to meet whatever the specifications were when the amendment was finally done. So this can run at both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, which is great. It uses what's called multiple input, multiple output technology. So multiple connections, which is very handy if you have more than one person on that wireless network. And now we go to 600 megabits. What a jump in speed, 600 megabits. And it's going to get better. 802.11ac, that amendment, gosh, when did that came out? That was really kind of cool, because that really did speed things up, and I'm looking for a year here and I'm not seeing it. It was shortly after that, and I don't remember exactly when it was, but that was a nice speed improvement. 2012, right? So several years afterwards. And this is a nice little chart to let you see the standards. Notice when they first start doing 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, that was the end standard. AC is just 5 gigahertz. That's it by itself. But it's backwards compatible, can give you 2.4, which I think it says it here. Let's double check. Now that I said it. Yeah, here we go. Oh, nope. Where is AC? I might be wrong on that. MIMO. Yeah, I guess just AC at 5 gigahertz. But it will run 2.4 with the other and standard. Here are some other amendments that came afterwards, all right? These are smaller amendments. And all these do is kind of help with the quality of the transmission and the security of the transmission. 802.11e has to do with quality of service that you might apply to certain types of transmissions like streaming video, things like that, or voice over IP for phone systems. Then we have what else? Security, 802.11i, and it came with one of the earlier attempts for security, which is WEP, Wired Equivalent Privacy, easily broken, not used much anymore. You know, hiding the SSID or the name of your wireless network, which can easily gotten around with Kali Linux. R has to do with secure roaming, going from access point to access point. K has to do with locating the best access point to connect to. And that, you know, when those were developed, these amendments, that was kind of the secret sauce the manufacturers used in their access points to make sure you could roam from point to point within a business deployment. S has to do with 802.11s mesh technology. Then we needed a way to certify. IEEE came up with the standards, but how do you certify that the manufacturers meet them? And that would be this symbol right here, Wi-Fi certified. That's what that is. Let's see, I'm going to Wi-Fi protected access. That has to do with the encryption you set up and your wireless network. And the most standard one you're going to see is WPA2. And I think that's down here somewhere. This was a big hack not so much long ago. I think Linux routers had these problems where you could do WPS and you can connect the Wi-Fi protected setup. We just hit a button on the router and the device and connect them up each other, but that was later hacked. There was a security flaw in it. Even when you turn them off on the router, the home routers, they were still working in that regard. You'll see a lot of equipment. You'll see Soho, that small office, home office equipment in that category, and there's also higher end, which is enterprise level. Small offices, you know, we're slow to get this equipment installed. You know, we had to have, they couldn't hire an IT staff many times. They had to pay for that service when they needed to use it. Enterprise, this chapter talks a little bit about how it was for many years, enterprise would do wired connections, but as the standards were met by manufacturers and the price came down, and so security got better, right? Because you're at a company, you have to worry about security and, you know, folks logging on to the network and the security of someone else just maybe intercepting that transmission wirelessly with the right type of laptop and software running. You know, that could be bad for the company. So when security got better, enterprise embraced the wireless networking technology. When they expanded, let's see, what else? Wireless hotspots, I think we know about, you know, coffee shops and airports and hotels that have them. Do be careful when you're using a wireless hotspot for free at a hotel, which is the worst, or a coffee shop. Make sure you use a good VPN service. We'll talk about that later in class. Or a travel router, which I've used at hotels. So really important. Let's see, we talk a little bit about deployment in offices, you know, and the cost of upgrading and running that wire can be expensive, so wireless does tend to be a little bit less expensive. Here's a, you know, the traditional, looks like a phone mill center for someone calling you to ask you to buy something, but these are office complexes and these are cubicles, and you might have a conference room with an access point, and notice that they're spread around this building. You know, typically you really don't want them near the perimeter wall. Not sure why they're showing you that. You would want these access points, especially this one here. There's no reason to have it this close to this wall. It needs to be moved in. This one perhaps is trying to pick up these clients, and this one, these clients, but I'm not sure. This is not a good map to follow as an example. This access point probably ought to be put out here to service this zone right in here. So we'll get more into that later. Academic use, educational, high schools, colleges, that tends to be handy, and libraries. Some of the older construction cinder block libraries are hard to set up for wired connections, and wireless kind of solves that problem. In industrial employments, you have a lot of electromagnetic interference, and you also have high ceilings and things that interfere with the way the wireless signal, you know, propagates to the building, to the area it's supposed to service. Healthcare uses it. I know when you go to the many times they have a laptop. They're not connected with a wire to the server when they're taking your medical information. It's all wireless. What else? Last mile drop. Sometimes it's costly for an internet service provider to service an area outside that last mile, and wireless might be a way to do it. Here's a wireless ISP or internet service provider, and this is providing. These are customers that are getting that signal and servicing the building here. Okay, so this is kind of critical. Now we know that the book is not quite up to date. We're saying that there's a future amendment, and that's 802.11ax. Well, that's already out, and it's called Wi-Fi 6 to make it easier to follow. So you're finding those kind of routers. In fact, I saw a laptop, I think it was at Office Depot, and it had 802.11ax wireless connectivity already for an under $400 laptop. Simply amazing. Okay, this is chapter 2. Hopefully it gives you a really good idea. Read this, go through it, and understand that here's the one little piece that we know that technology is caught up faster than the publishers are able to update the book. But take a look at it. Email me if you have questions, and we'll see you on the web.